You're listening to Fourth and Inches on Spreaker Web Radio. Fourth and Inches is presented by Bayou State Pawn and Jewelry and Bayou Bark. Now here are the hosts, Nick Lott and Armando Ramirez.
We are back, Fourth and Inches, Spreaker Web Radio, Nick Lott, Armando Ramirez. This segment will be breaking down the new bowl game, the Champions Bowl between the Big 12 and the SEC. We were talking so much about the Big East last segment, I almost said Big East and completely messed that up. But, I mean, there were, I think, 10 cities in the bidding for this, but as of right now, it looks like Arlington with Jerry World and New Orleans with the Mercedes-Benz Superdome are the favorites to host the new Champions Bowl, which will put the SEC and the Big 12 champions against each other starting January 1st, 2015 in prime time. As you know, the Rose Bowl takes place earlier in the day on New Year's Day, so it's going to be cool to see how it's going to get more Big 12 teams on the national spotlight. But one thing that I really thought of is, in my opinion, or not in just my opinion, but in a lot of people's opinion, the SEC is the strongest conference in football. You can argue that, I guess, but I just don't see it. And with the winner of the SEC usually transitions to the national championship, so I don't get how this game is going to work out, because if you have a good season in the Big 12 and you have a team that has a good season in the SEC and they both win their conference, I mean, you're sitting there taking the next best team, so it's really not what this game is going to be advertised to be.
Right. Yeah. I think this is more like a game where you could find out, you could put like the SEC number 2 against the, or the SEC number 2 might be in the playoff.
Right, and that's, we talk.
I'm just thinking in my head right now. Yeah, but you could put the best SEC team out of the playoff and the best Big 12 team out of the playoff, and then you can just bump heads there and see what. I think this is this is like trying to find out or trying to see. This is a good bowl game. This is like trying to see maybe if the Big 12 might be like the second best conference in the NCAA.
And I mean, conferences change over time. I mean, for a while, the Big 12 was the conference.
Number 1,
yeah. And then it transitioned into the SEC. But with all the recruits that teams in the SEC are getting, I mean, they're routinely landing 5-star recruits. And that's not just the top schools in the SEC, the LSUs, the Alabamas, the Arkansas, Florida. That not just those teams. I mean, Vanderbilt's landing decent recruits that probably are getting better offers to go play at different schools in different conferences, but they say, hey, I want to play in the SEC.
Yeah.
And you see that's what Kevin Sumlin that did this summer, or this offseason rather, with transitioning to the SEC with A&M. And he was able to land a lot of recruits all in the Southeast because they want to play for that name brand. They want to play for the SEC. They don't care if they're going to get beat. They want to play for that conference.
Right, and Kevin Sumlin did a good job. He has one of the best, I think A&M's in the top 10 recruiting class of the year, and I think Kevin Sumlin really did a good job endorsing or pitching the SEC to the great recruits that he did get, and he did a great job in saying that you're going to be playing for one of the best conferences in the nation. Yeah, in the entire nation, and it's going to be a rebuilding process. It's going to be a process to get where we need to be able to contend with these Alabamas and Arkansas and Auburns, but we are going to try our best. And with these new great recruits, we're going to make it happen.
What do you think about them trying to build a new stadium? Because I thought they were going to expand
A&M?
Kyle Field already.
Okay.
Like they were going to take down that side that has the scoreboard, I guess,
right,
and just make it
upper
level.
The original plan was they were gonna just put another level up.
So what I thought.
Yeah, they were gonna make another level, but it's kind of confusing right now because they've been back and forth and they've said anything goes. But
I mean, do you think they really need to build spend all the money on a brand new stadium?
Let me just put it out there. I think Kyle Field is College Station. Anything that happens in College Station goes through Kyle Field, and I think the tradition, that stadium has been around since
that stadium's loud too. I really don't like A&M, and I'll give it to them. I've been there for a few Texas Tech games. That stadium is loud.
That stadium is loud. And just the tradition, that stadium's been around since I believe it's like 1930 something, in the 30s around there. That stadium's been around for a long time, and it's been renovated a couple times. And I mean, just renovate it again, because if you put a totally different stadium there,
that takes out, like you said, takes out part of the city of College Station.
Yeah, I mean,
if
you put just a brand new stadium there, it's gonna be like it's not gonna be the same. It's Kyle Field is what makes College Station great, and the tradition that A&M has, the Yale leaders and stuff, that's what makes it great, and that's what they pride themselves on. And if you just take out that stadium and put a new one in, it's not going to be the same.
And, I mean,
they already do have a contractor that they hired, Populous, HOK, and they're working on the design, but, I mean, I would just rather see it rebuilt, and they're gonna make a decision eventually. I think
rebuilt or expanded.
Expanded.
Okay.
I don't want to see it rebuilt. I want to see it expanded. But they're gonna have to make a decision soon, anyways, because they're gonna start not for this season. Obviously, it's way too. They're gonna start at the end of the season. So we're gonna find out what they're gonna do with that stadium, anyways.
I will say one thing: I've never been to a game at Kyle Field that A&M has won.
Oh, I have. So I mean,
I haven't. So I guess if I go to every game this year, they'll lose every game.
I guess so.
More college football talk coming up. Spreaker Web Radio, Nick Lott, Armando Ramirez. Before we head out on this commercial break, word to our sponsors, Bayou Bark. Check them out on Facebook, www.facebook.com/BayouBark. Check them out on their own website, BayouBark.com. Award-winning sauces and dry rubs. Check them out. They're awesome. It's Bayou Bark. It's amazing. If you like barbecue, if you live in Texas, barbecue is a big thing. Check them out, BayouBark.com. We'll be right back. Spreaker Web Radio.
She's a runner, rebel, and a stunner. From the mirror way, saying, baby, what you gonna? Looking down the barrel of a hot metal 45. Just another way to survive. California, rest in peace.
You're listening to 4th and Inches on Spreaker Web Radio, presented by Bayou State Pawn and Jewelry, RDM Audio, and Bayou Bark. Now, here are the hosts, Nick Lott and Armando Ramirez.
Wow, sorry for that delay, guys. I muted the microphone and forgot about it. But music by Mirage on this segment. Sorry about that, probably 20-second pause. Good friends of mine in Louisiana do their own dubstep techno. Mirage, check them out on Facebook. Pretty sure they have their own website, but I'm not sure on the URL on that. But good music, check them out. But as we're getting back into this, let's do coaches on the hot seat.
All right, coaches on the hot seat. Basically, most of these coaches are not big powers. They've never been.
They may have been at one point. I mean, looking at this list, I see Tommy Tuberville at 4.
Yeah, I'm not. But some of them, most of them have really never been a national power. But let's just go down it right now. Number 1, Boston College's coach, Frank
Spaziani.
Yeah, I know how to say that. Frank Spaziani. And then number 2,
it's like Jimmy from South Park.
And then Oregon State coach Mike Riley's coming in at number 2. Number 3.
It's going to be interesting to see about Mike Riley because obviously they lose Ryan Katz to San Diego State.
Right.
So really a big part of their offense last year decided to transfer. So it's going to be interesting to see what he does on the offensive side of the ball without Ryan Katz.
Right. And then we go at number 3, Maryland's coach, Randy Edsall. Randy Edsall, number 3. And then coming in at number 4, probably one of the bigger programs, one of the coaches of the bigger programs, W. Tuberville, on
Texas Tech.
Yeah.
Let me just touch on Tommy Tuberville for a second, if I can. I've always kind of viewed. I think he's a great coach. Don't get me wrong, but I've always kind of viewed Tommy Tuberville as that guy that he's defensive minded and. He completely revamped the defense when he came in, but, I mean, they just haven't made tackles for the past 2 seasons that he's been head coach, so it really gives his defense a bad rap. And, I mean, he brings Neil Brown in as an offensive coordinator, and Neil Brown definitely has a great offense. I like Seth Dagey at quarterback, and I think he can do great things this season, but I really don't think Tommy Tuberville is the answer. And, I mean, Mike Leach was just such a great coach at Texas Tech. He was the guy that put them on the map. He made Tech one of the cooler places to go on the Big 12. And give it about 4 or 5 years, if it even takes that long, maybe 2 or 3, and look at where Washington State is with Mike Leach at head coach. Because, I mean, right off the bat at Tech, Tech was a 6-6, 7-5 team, and once Mike Leach came along, after a couple of years, he started implementing his offense. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens at Washington State. But I say give them a couple of years, and they're going to be not a powerhouse, but I mean, kind of like how Tech was, working their way up.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, how long has he been there? Like a couple years now?
Yeah, this will be his 3rd season.
Yeah. So I mean, it's a process when you get a new coach. It's always a process, and going from that air raid that Mike Leach had to now,
it's still an air raid, but I mean, you have a little bit more running with Eric Stevens.
Yeah, and they never really had a great defense either.
No, I mean, 2008 was their best year. Anybody will tell you that. And their defense was solid. I mean, you saw what they did when they beat Texas. I mean, just coming up with great plays. And, I mean, they lost a lot of those guys. They don't have Marlon Williams anymore. They don't have Brian Duncan. They don't have Bront Bird. They don't have Charbonnet, the safety. I mean, they lost a lot of people, and Tuberville's, I guess, doing his best to bring them back in. And coming off of a 5-7 season, I think if he misses a bowl game this year,
he'll be out.
Yeah, I don't know if he'll be out, but I mean, there are a lot of people that didn't like him before he even coached a game at
So
Tech.
he'll just be on the hotter seat.
I mean, he may, if they do worse than 5-7, which they can easily do. I mean, because they just lost. They lost a bunch of games last season at the last second, and so really those could have been wins, but I mean they aren't. So, and that reflects him. And I mean, with a team that was bowl bound for, I think it was 12 straight seasons that Mike Leach was head coach, Tommy Tuberville comes in and gets them to a bowl game in his first season, but doesn't do it. That's a program that's used to going to the postseason, and the fact that they didn't do that got a lot of the Texas Tech faithful, me included, kind of questioning what Tuberville is doing in Lubbock.
All right, so moving on to hot seat number 5, we got Tennessee, Derek Dooley. I think after Lane Kiffin came in, I think he's having a little trouble getting that team back where they need to be, where they want to be, and I think it's gonna take its toll. And who knows? Maybe he'll be out. If he has a decent season, he'll probably stay. But we gotta see what kind of season this guy has.
I mean, Tyler Bray, he quarterback at Tennessee, one of the guys that is supposedly going to make a name for himself this year. If he didn't already do that in the offseason, getting in trouble for throwing beer bottles at parked cars. But I talked to one of my friends that's a Tennessee fan. He said the school's not really going to do anything about it. It's been internally handled. Tyler Bray will play, but Derek